Alright, kids, are you ready to hear a story? Yeah!
Welcome to Witch Toasts and Other Tales. The Moonicorn Part 1, The Moonstorm. Folks talked about it for a long time afterwards. It was a strange storm with an eerie light, and it came out of nowhere. Happened in the dead of night. One minute the sky was clear and bright. All was peaceful and quiet. No wind, a full moon shining down. The next, it was like somebody flipped a switch. The wind was howling and dark clouds covered the sky. Lightning came down. But this lightning, it wasn't like normal lightning. It didn't look the same. Not many folks saw it happen. Most that did thought it was just a trick of the light. The more fancifully inclined said it must have been the moonbeams coming down and mixing in with the electricity. It all happened a long time ago on a warm night in a small town. Amos Jenkins was sleeping in his bed when all of a sudden, boom, came the sound of thunder. He stirred and opened his eyes and sat upright and looked out the window. Lightning flashed. He was confused for a second. The light was strange, not bluish purple, but silvery and pale. And when it flashed, it lit the fields with a glow like moonlight. And then it was gone, and the night was dark. Thunder boomed again. The cows! He swung his legs over the bed and pulled on his boots and grabbed his jacket and ran outside. You see, Amos was a farmer, and he had a herd of dairy cows. Each morning he milked the cows and put them out in one of his fields. During the day, he'd move them around, letting them graze one field down before moving them to another. At night, if it was cold or the weather was bad, he'd bring them into the barn. Otherwise, they slept under the stars. Well, that night, the weather was supposed to be nice, and when Amos had gone to bed, it sure looked that way. The moon was full, the sky was clear, and there was no wind to speak of. So he left his herd to sleep out in the field. But now, he needed to bring them in. The wind hit him, and the rain started coming down as Amos raced to the barn. Crack! Lightning split the air as he slid open the big barn doors, and he ran to the gate to let the cows through. They're all gathered there, wanting to get inside, out of the rain and away from the storm. As soon as he opened the gate, they started streaming through, and he started counting them. What are the 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 50. Wait, 50? He was missing one. But which one? He went back over to the barn and took a quick look. Amos knew his herd well. That was an important thing for a dairy farmer. His father and grandfather had taught him that. They always said, take care of the cows. The cows give the milk makes the money. And that's how he ran his farm. It was his job to make sure nothing bad happened to them. And he took it seriously. For Amos, it wasn't just a matter of business either. It was a matter of pride. So he was pretty distressed one of them was missing during such a terrible storm. And he was even more distressed when he realized the missing cow was Betsy. Betsy was his best dairy cow. Her milk was the most delicious. It was her milk that his own family used to drink and cook with. And whenever one of their friends invited his family over for dinner, it was a bottle of her milk they brought as a gift. He was worried about her. You wouldn't know it from looking at her or seeing her walk around, and especially wouldn't know it from the taste of her milk. But she was getting on in years. He was the second or third oldest cow in the whole herd. And now, going missing on a night like this? The lightning was crashing all around him now. Amos ran outside and through the gate the cows had come through, right into the center of the field. He couldn't see Betsy anywhere. Maybe the back fence? He ran to the fence at the back of the field. The gate back here was supposed to be closed, but he saw that it was open. And past it, the ground climbed steeply upward to the highest point on his land. And at the top of the hill, there was Betsy. He shouted and waved his arms and began running up the hill towards her when there came a terrible crack, and a bolt of silver lightning struck the hilltop. He knocked Amos off his feet and lay on his back in a puddle of mud, stunned. He couldn't see or hear anything for a few seconds. It had been so loud and so bright. His senses slowly came back. He blinked his eyes and shook his head. And then he remembered Betsy. Amos looked up the hill, but he didn't see her there anymore, so he ran up it all the way to the peak. He caught sight of her as he crested the top, peering through the rain. She was standing. He gave a sigh of relief. he was certain she'd been struck. She was facing him tail side, and as he walked around to come up on her from the side, lightning flashed again. Not close, but enough to light up the sky, and Amos gasped. There was something sticking out of Betsy's head. He came up alongside her, patting her neck. Easy, old girl, easy. He slipped a rope over her head, careful to avoid whatever was there. She must have been injured in the storm after all. He'd have to take a close look in the barn, where it was safe. He led her back there, and she didn't protest, or seem to have any problems walking. Once Amos got her inside, he lit up a kerosene lantern and gasped again. There on Betsy's head, coming right out of her forehead, was a sparkling silver horn. He couldn't believe it. Was this some sort of joke somebody was playing on him? Amos went up and patted her on her head and gently looked around the base of the horn. He could see no seam or harness or any indication of how it could be attached. He even pulled on it just a little, but there was nothing. It was like it was a part of her, like it had just suddenly sprouted and grown right out of her skull. Well, he checked the rest of her over and couldn't find any injuries. Just the same old Betsy. So he made sure she drank a little water, then left her alone to get some rest. He went back to the house and did the same himself. That's the end of part 1. Find out what happens next in The Moonicorn, part 2. The Moonicorn, part 2. Talk of the town. The next morning, Amos went out to milk the cows, as he always did. He wasn't sure what he was going to do with Betsy, but she lined up like she always did. So he went ahead and milked her along with the rest. He tasted the milk, and not only was it just as delicious as ever, it was even better. Took another look at the horn to see if he'd missed something the night before, but just as before, he couldn't find anything. It was like it had just grown all at once. He kept a special eye on Betsy as he led the cows out in the fields. She seemed just fine, moving and acting the same as always. So Amos just put the horn out of his mind and went about his business as usual. So it went on for 3 or 4 days until Hank came over. He was a friend of Amos's, and he came over to give him some advice on how to manage the water flow on one of the fields. There's a hillside, and it was washing away pretty bad. Something was going to have to be done. So there they were up in the fields, talking about what might be done, and all of a sudden Hank goes quiet. Amos was like, "Hank?" And he turned around to see what he was up to, and Hank was staring at Betsy. She was grazing with a few of the other cows along the fence, there in the field right next to them, and her silver horn was glittering in the sun. "What is that?" asked Hank. Not sure exactly. Just found her that way a couple nights back. But what is that? Is it glued on or something? Not as near as I can tell. Don't seem to bother it none." Hank chuckled. "Is that right? I thought someone's messing with you, or you're up to something, Amos. How about that culvert?" A few nights later, Amos and Hank went down to the pub, having a drink with their friends Jed and Clive, who were also farmers. And Jed asked, "What's with that horn on one of your cows, Amos? I saw it passing by the other day. Some kind of joke or something for your kids, or what's going on there?" Amos said, "Well, truth is, I don't know. I just found her like that during the storm the other night." They were pretty incredulous and asked him a lot of questions about it. So finally, Amos said, "I'll tell you what, since you're all so interested, why don't y'all come on over for lunch tomorrow, and afterwards we'll go on out and have a look." So the next day, Hank, Clive, and Jed came over for lunch. Mrs. Jenkins made chili. It was delicious. And afterwards, Amos took him up into the field and showed him Betsy. They all wanted to get up close and take a look for themselves, so Amos said, "Well, that's fine, just one at a time, and be gentle with her." Hank went up and he patted her head and said, "Good girl, good girl." Then he touched the horn, felt around the base of it where it met her head. He pulled apart the fur a little bit with his fingers to get a better look, and then he gave a gentle tug on the horn. "Moo," said Betsy. Hank walked back, shaking his head. "I can't figure it," was all he said. Then Jed went up and touched the horn and felt around the base of it where it met her head. Then he gave a firm tug on the horn. And this time Betsy moved twice. "Moo, moo." Jed walked back, shaking his head too. "Beats me. It's the darndest thing." Then it was Clive's turn. "I can't believe you guys think this is real. He done fooled you good." He went up to Betsy and touched the horn and felt around the base of it where it met her head. Then he gave a real hard tug on it. And now Betsy gave 3 moos. "Moo, moo, moo." And all of a sudden, a strange light appeared at the end of her horn. It must have caught the light just right, because for an instant Amos, Hank, and Jed were blinded. So they didn't see exactly what happened, but they heard a loud click and then a thud. Clive was lying on his back, 10 feet from Betsy, looking dazed. What done happened? They rushed over to him. You all right? Yeah, I think so. Guess I pulled too hard. She must have kicked me. I'll tell you what, though. Whoever put that horn on must have known what they were doing. It stuck tight. They had a laugh over him getting kicked, and they all went home. There was farm work to do. After that, word started to spread around town. There's a cow with a silver horn over at the Jenkins place. That's the end of part 2. Find out what happens next in the Moonicorn part 3.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe.